Hey guys, it's Steve from Mantis here. You're listening to the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast, only on the Counting Out 7 YouTube channel. Jay, let's go!
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. My name is Jay, and this week we are joined by a very special guest, our very first guest host. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Counted Out 7's own Tyler. Tyler, how you doing, buddy?
We are, sorry, that's the wrong show. I apologize. I'm doing good, man. I'm real excited to jump on here. Hopefully I can fill in for the almighty Tyrone. Tyrone, do not worry. I am not afraid to tell Jay to grow up if his booking gets out of control today, okay?
We both know that's never going to happen. I'm a perpetual Peter Pan syndrome over here. But no, that's great. I'm really excited you jumped on. Unfortunately, Tyrone wasn't able to make it this week, so we called an audible and got our good friends at the sister podcast here to jump on with us, and we're very excited to discuss all things WCW 2000. Now,
yeah,
Tyler,
I got heat with you already on this because I hate WCW 2000. And if you guys listen to the Counted Out show, to me WCW died in '99. That's where I fell out of it, you know. And so when you asked me, hey man, can you come on this week? I said sure. What are we doing? And you told me WCW 2000. I was like, oh, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, well, you know, I have to be honest with you, though, going back and watching some of it to get prepared for this episode, it's not as bad as I remember it. It's still bad, but there is, you know, some light at the end of the tunnel there. There are some diamonds in the rough. I didn't hate all of it, so it's going to be interesting to see. I really like the idea of us covering this particular event because it's just a few months removed from the reboot that they did on Nitro. I believe it was April 10th, 2000, they rebooted the company and stripped all the titles, and we got that new blood versus Millionaires Club angle, which was pretty exciting, I guess, at the time. So what are your thoughts going into, you know, the summer of 2000 in WCW, other than, you know, the aforementioned dislike of it?
Honestly, I think by this point they have already destroyed this angle. I thought there was a lot of excitement going into that reboot, but I just think, you know, you said something here when you went back and you watched a show that you enjoyed it. It wasn't that bad. From an in-ring standpoint, if you take a look at some of the names on this card, you know, Lieutenant Loco, Mike Awesome, DDP, Booker T, Scott Steiner, even at this point, was still good. Billy Kidman, their in-ring, Vampiro, like their in-ring talent is fantastic. I think you enjoyed it so much because these guys can work, but because you didn't have to watch the 4 weeks of TV that led up to all these angles.
Yeah, that's very fair. I will say, coming out of the actual event in canon, what took place, I actually really appreciated the main event angle. I thought it was quite well done. And then, of course, the follow-up on Nitro the next night was actually really good. It had a lot of potential. I really enjoyed the logical booking of it. I mean, it's an old school angle, but I also thought that it was one of the more cohesive kind of logical angles that they'd done in quite a while. So I appreciated that aspect of it. So it was sort of that old adage that they've talked about so many times with Russo, being that, you know, he has 10 ideas, 9 are horrible, 1's really good. And this happened to be a case where I'm assuming he's the one that booked the angle, maybe with Bischoff. It was well done.
And this is, are we going to go ahead and just talk about the angle then, or do you want to wait till we get there and are you going to rebook it? Or what do you want to do here?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to rebook it. I have this whole card has been rebooked, more or less.
Yeah.
I booked the entire angle actually going into the summer from the reboot. So I guess we'll just go ahead and start with that.
Well, before you get into that, I wouldn't mind talking about the original here. Like, do you want to wait till we get to that part of the show to talk about the stuff with Goldberg, or do you want to talk about it now since you brought it up?
We can talk about it now if you want, for sure.
Like, I don't know. So you know, the big angle coming out of this show, and I'd like you actually to refresh my memory on the angle from Nitro the next night because I don't remember it. But it was the big Goldberg heel turn, right?
It was the Goldberg heel turn, but I just thought more than anything, the promo that he cut, because Goldberg's not known as a promo guy, he cut a really, really good promo on Nitro the next night. And it made so much sense because he just referred back to how many times he'd been screwed over by all these different superstars and, you know, the Millionaires Club and things of that nature. So the simplicity of it is what really resonated with me. I thought that's it's logical in that standpoint that just because he's quote unquote, you know, one of the millionaire boys, that he's not siding with all these guys that have screwed him over time and time and time again. So I thought it made a ton of sense. And of course they botched it after that, but the beginning of it was really well done.
Yeah, you know what? It's definitely something that got the wrestling world talking a little bit, because Goldberg, to me, Goldberg has that kind of, not quite to this level, but that Ricky Steamboat, Ricky Morton babyface vibes to him. Even though he's a totally different character and he's this ass-kicking machine, I never saw Goldberg as a heel. And when they turned him heel, I was like, okay, well, like, let's see how it goes here. I was, you know, the Russo booking I was a little burnt out with at this point, so I didn't know if they were turning him heel just to shock us or if they had a plan. Turned out it was just to shock us, I guess, because I don't really remember much of a good fall. Did he get injured shortly after this?
I don't recall, but I don't think he did much after this. I mean, we've talked about it on our podcast a few times with Tyrone that when I think about WCW Goldberg, I don't think about much after the streak. Once the streak ended, he really didn't do a whole lot. I mean, he was there, but they cooled his jets after Nash pinned him at Starrcade 98. And once you do that, you kill his momentum. He would just kind of seem like another guy on the roster to me at that point.
Yeah, no, I can't argue that point at all. And Goldberg definitely was special. We did a list a couple months ago on our show at www.countedout7.com, cheap plug, where I counted down the top 7 rookies of all time, top 7 rookie years of all time. And I actually put Goldberg as my number 1 because the guy, by the end of his first year, was the biggest star in wrestling. Him and Austin were neck and neck with each other during a boom period of professional wrestling. And it takes something really special. And I'm going to try my best to be open-minded here. And I don't want to just shit all over WCW because I did like some of their in-ring product. But it takes somebody really special to screw that up. And I don't know how you screw up something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a testament in a sense to Bischoff and whomever was running WCW's creative at the time. I think that it was Kevin Sullivan had a big hand in it as well. I think that, you know, you look at the NWO starting in 96 and then 97, 98, I think the booking was pretty strong for WCW for those years. And we started to lose things a little bit going into 99. Now, I've said on a couple of occasions that my favorite year for WCW is 99. I love it. I go back and I really, really enjoy the product. Not so much the latter half of it, but, you know, going into 99 and then throughout the summer. And once you got into the fall, you started to lose me a bit. But in terms of booking Goldberg, I think that they did a really, really solid job booking him for the first part of his run there. And then again, once you kill him off with Nash, all things kind of go downhill. So, and to your point about Austin, I mean, I bought the Goldberg heel turn more than I did the Austin heel turn.
Yeah. I don't think either one of them worked for me personally. And even Steve Austin has said many times, I wish I called an audible. Yeah. And I don't know, like, to me, the Goldberg heel turn, I actually forgot all about it until I looked this show up. So, you know, what could have been maybe. And now it's funny because I think Goldberg's a bigger heel now than he's ever been because every time he comes back, everybody loses their mind.
Yeah, it's so true. That's the internet wrestling community going bananas over having him come back and squash guys. But you know what? If he's willing to do it, and I think that he gets guys over by doing that. I mean, maybe not Dolph Ziggler, but he certainly didn't hurt Drew McIntyre doing that. So
no, not at all. Before I let you get on to your booking here too, because I have another question for you. Now, you mentioned the NWO, right? And now, you know, fast forward. So the NWO started in the summer of 96 officially, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward, you know, 99, they did a reboot. In the beginning of 2000, they did another NWO reboot. And now in the middle of 2000, we've got the Millionaire Club. Do you think this is them just going back to the same well one more time with just a different spin on it, just hanging on, trying to find that lightning in a bottle again? Because to me, I feel like they never got away from that faction takeover type of thing from '96 until they closed the doors.
Yeah, I think that they were trying to recreate lightning in a bottle. It's been said so many times that with the NWO, had you not watered it down, I think it would have stayed strong for a lot longer. Once you start getting guys in there like Stevie Ray and, whoever, Horace Hogan was in there and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think that if you have a core nucleus of Hogan, Hall, Nash, Bischoff, maybe 6, and the Giant possibly. Maybe you could get away with that, but I think once you get past 4 or 5 members, you start to lose the audience a bit. It gets too convoluted. I think that the strongest they ever were was when they were, at the beginning, really. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think?
I just think that they couldn't get away from this type of takeover storyline. I think it just consumed WCW, and it really worked well at the beginning, Well, but they had the right guys at the beginning. You know what I mean? There's a big difference here when you're trying to tell me that Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan are trying to take over a company compared to, Jeff Jarrett, Sean Stasiak, and Billy Kidman. I'm not buying that. And I've seen it before. I want something different, And I think that they were trying to force these new people, these new, the young talent, kind of the way that WWE forces things like the Women's Revolution, and they could have just let it happen organically. Give Billy Kidman and Lieutenant Loco 20 minutes to open this pay-per-view, let's say, and they're going to get people talking more than having Kidman in there with Hogan, Yeah,
I mean, while you were saying that, a thought occurred to me that really this whole angle was almost like a precursor to the invasion angle. Yeah. Because you have all these young upstarts coming in to try to run over the established stars, and none of them really had the star power to be credible. So it's almost like the invasion angle before the invasion angle, if that makes sense.
And to me, though, this whole angle, it doesn't help anybody. All you're doing is you're burying your entire roster, in my opinion. When you have these young guys come up and say, you're old, you're terrible, your time has passed. Well, even if they do beat these guys, well, why do I care? Because you told me that they're old and terrible and washed up. So it doesn't mean anything if you beat them. And then if you end up losing to these guys, well, now you've lost, and they're the baby faces. So the Millionaires Club should be going over, right? Because they're the baby faces. So now it's like, well, you've just destroyed your whole next generation of superstars. Like, I just don't understand the mind frame. Like, I don't understand where the end goal is from here, unless you want to just extinct all these guys like Nash, Flair, Hogan at this time. And these guys still add to your product. So, like, if you want to get the new talent over, book it differently,
Yeah, I think that there needs to be more of an even booking. I mean, even the way I book this card, I feel as though you have to have some of the established stars do the job. And then, of course, you have to have some of them go over as well to keep it sort of consistent and competitive. It's always been said that anybody can win a match on any given night. So yeah. I'm absolutely fine with younger talent going over. But to your point, you kill your golden goose when you start talking about these guys being washed up and old. You lose credibility with the audience, and
it just hurts everybody.
Well, I think that the idea originally was that they were trying to make the new blood the faces, and it backfired because you have all these established stars. Obviously, the crowd's going to cheer for their established stars that they've grown up watching. They're not going to cheer for, I'm sorry, but you're not going to cheer for Vampiro or Vampiro over Sting. I mean, in a match, everybody's going to be cheering for Sting for the most part, right? So,
well, and these are guys that you've built your company around for the last 3 years during your hottest period. Sting is another one of the ultimate baby faces of all time. So it doesn't matter. He's not a heel, and every time he's tried to turn heel, it's never worked.
Yeah, 100%.
That's my rant on that angle. Let's see maybe if you can fix this angle. Got your work cut out for you, man.
I'm certainly going to try. So you ready to get into it?
Yeah, man. Why don't you set the picture here? Where are we going? I know you do a rundown of all that stuff. So,
Well, I'm actually going to start the angle all over again. So at the WCW reboot, which was April 10th, 2000 at Monday Nitro, Bischoff and Russo vacate all the titles and form the New Blood faction. And Bischoff specifically cites the established stars as users who manipulated him into signing them to huge contracts to protect their spots. As the stars of WCW hear this, they find themselves in the midst of an uprising and form, some alliances going forward. So others band together in a strategy of strength in numbers. So some guys kind of come together immediately, and slowly other ones like Flair, Hogan, Goldberg, Sting, Nash, DDP, Terry Funk, Chronic, even the Steiners come together in a faction unofficially known as the Millionaires Club. So it seems that the group is against the entire roster of marginalized talents. Some fan favorites like Booker T even join the New Blood with the premise of opportunity or rather the promise of opportunity to advance into the main event. So we have at Spring Stampede 6 days later in Chicago. The champions are established going forward. World champion Jeff Jarrett, United States champion Booker T, tag team champions Chronic, Chavo Guerrero is your Cruiserweight champion, and the hardcore champion is Bam Bam Bigelow. So following Spring Stampede, the two factions continue to one-up each other on episodes of Nitro and Thunder. Just a quick caveat here. While the Ready to Rumble movie would be released around this time, April 7th, 2000, David Arquette would have zero involvement in any storylines or be an on-screen character. I just completely took that out. That never happened.
okay.
Don't want anything to do with it. I thought
Like in no way, shape, or form, he's on your TV.
Well, he might be there to promote the movie and maybe do like an angle where he, gets knocked out or something like that. Maybe he takes a car shot from Jarrett or something. But he's not going to be involved in any matches. He's certainly not going to win the world title. I think that's more than anything what cooled the Jets of that angle. Once you did that, because it's almost as if once you started the angle, it so quickly diverted into that there was no opportunity for the angle to really grow or advance the storyline. So as we approach Slamboree, the first Hogan and Kidman match would take place, and Kidman would get the win with a shocking upset. The finish comes as Hogan is hulking up on Kidman. Jarrett finds himself at ringside and nails Hogan with the acoustic equalizer, and Kidman distracts Mickey J for the win. The other big angle coming out of Slamboree is the main event. Jeff Jarrett's first title offense comes in the form of challenging DDP. As the contest starts off strong with both men putting forth a solid effort, it's fairly quickly breaks down to a huge bench clearing brawl with both factions and locker rooms empty. We go off the air with the New Blood holding the higher ground as the Millionaires are forced to regroup. And then the following night on Nitro, the club lays down a challenge to the main event of the Great American Bash. Should the Millionaires Club win, they will assume creative control of WCW, challenging any member at Bash at the Beach, title or not, and being able to sort of go up against who they want to get their hands on in the New Blood faction. So that's where we are going with this paper here.
Okay. I like that, man. I like that. So let's get right to it then. As an avid listener to the show, I know how this works, and I will play the role of Tyrone today. So match number 1, we have Lieutenant Loco, who is Chavo Guerrero, defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Disco Inferno. What do you got?
I got rid of the Misfits in Action faction. I just had these guys in their normal gimmicks. I didn't like it. I thought it was kind of stupid. Also, when you have certain guys like Booker T, I don't need G.I. Bro. Give me Booker T. So the first match on the card is actually going to be for the WCW Tag Team Champions. It's a championship. It's Chronic defending against Conan and Rey Mysterio.
Okay.
So we have Rey bumping all over the place for Clark and Adams. Conan works much of the match with the story being a classic, cut the ring off in half. Chronic works over Conan's leg to the point of near submission. The finish comes with a hot tag to Mysterio, who does a springboard into a double choke slam, and we get Chronic retaining the WCW Tag Team Championships.
Okay, so Chronic would be part of the varsity club in this, or the Millionaires Club? Where are they? Are they the heels or the faces here?
The Chronic is part of the Millionaires Club, and Conan and Mysterio are part of the New Blood.
Okay. Yeah, and you know what? I'm fine with this. I don't think Conan or Ray need the belts at this point. Chronic was very over, as much as they were limited in the ring when you go back and watch it. Their gimmick was really over at this point. I'm fine with Chronic going over. I think this is a fine opener because Rey Mysterio at this point in his career especially could make them look very good. If you had a motivated Conan, who he usually was a little more motivated in there with Rey, I think this would be a passable tag team match. So I'll give you a thumbs up on the first go around here, all right?
All right, sounds good. Chronic, I mean, what are you going to do, right? They're established tag team. They're being pushed at this point to be the top tag team in the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So, the in-ring incredible, but you can get a good match out of them with guys like Rey Mysterio bumping all around for them, right?
Yeah. You call a spade, man. Chronic was over at this point. As I wasn't a big fan of them, but they were over with the crowd. Their gimmick was good. They had the music. They were ass kickers. Rey Mysterio make them look like $1 million. Yeah, this is fine by me.
Yeah, they did have cool entrance music for sure. I will agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so what's next on top?
Well, the second match was Chronic defending the tag team titles against the Mamalukes there, Vito and Johnny the Bull. So obviously this one is changing. So where are we going here?
We actually have a second tag team match. I know it's weird to place tag team match after tag team match, but it's WCW 2000, so...
I love tag team wrestling, so you got me going here.
I have Mark Jindrak and Sean O'Hare going up against their reunited Steiner brothers.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So the Steiners make their long-awaited return, in-ring return after a flurry of offense from the young upstarts. The brothers make a relatively short work of them. The finish comes after a Steiner line over the top rope to Jindrak from Scott. Rick lands a top rope bulldog to O'Hare, and Scotty applies the Steiner recliner for the win.
All right. I like the match idea a lot, but I think I would have switched the finish, and I would have had the young guys go over the Steiners here. If you've got Chronic going over in the first match as the tag champs, and they are part of the Millionaires Club, right? Then the young guys, I think, should go over here, and then you have your number one contenders set up for your tag team titles at the next pay-per-view.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but just give me a little bit of rope here because of the booking going forward. It's going to make sense towards the end of the show, I think.
Okay. The Steiners, obviously, Scott Steiner was one of the top single stars in the company at this point, so it's not unlikely. In WCW 2000, he probably would have beat both of these guys on their own. So at least he had Rick there to balance that out a little bit. But okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt here. I'll see where this plays out. I would have probably put the young guys over on this one though, pinning Rick Steiner to keep Scotty strong.
No, that's totally fair. I get that. I also will say that because this would be the first time the Steiners would reunite in a couple of years, I kind of felt like they had to win the first one. I mean, one of the most established tag teams ever. And the other thing I want to say about Scott Steiner quick is I think had WCW continued and they would have been able to, pull the nose up and we didn't have Vince buy them in 2001, this was the height of Scott Steiner. I really feel like he was on the cusp of becoming the big star in WCW. He was going to be the next guy. And I felt like if we had continued on and the viewership would have increased and things of that nature, I definitely feel as though Scott Steiner would have been the face of WCW. He was just that good in 2000. Yeah,
he was an enigma at this point because his promos really started to come into their own here. This was before Steiner math where, I think Scott knows what he is now as his place. But at this point, he just literally came off like a psychopath. He was, and then that was a shoot too, because he was beating up guys in the back. Like him and DDP got into it a couple times. I think there's another backstage altercation he got into. So he was a real wild card at this point in WCW, both in the ring and out of the ring. But people believed in him.
Yeah, 100%. He was like legitimately, you could be bottom as a psycho, like roid rage or something, right? Like just 100% believable in his character.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this one. I'll see where the booking plays out. Moving on to the third match on the card, you have what, in my opinion, is the biggest missed opportunity during the whole WCW from this time until they close. Mike Awesome defeating Diamond Dallas Page with Chris Kanyon in an ambulance match here. What do you got?
The next match I have on the card is for the WCW Hardcore Championship, an Asbury Park Rules match. It's Bam Bam Bigelow defending the title against Terry Funk.
Okay. Yeah, I love Bam Bam Bigelow. I love Terry Funk. Terry at this point could still hang in there. These hardcore matches, as crazy as this is going to sound, because it's not, but they were shortcuts for Terry that he could take to keep himself looking decent. And he, we just talked about Scott Steiner being crazy. Terry Funk is the craziest of them all. Walk me through the match, and who do you got going over? Walk me through this a little bit before I give a final opinion on it.
It's a pretty typical WCW hardcore match with all the plunder you'd expect. A lot of backstage brawling, lots of objects. It's nothing fancy. The finish comes when Funk lands a moonsault off the entrance girder through a table on Bammer, and then we have a new hardcore champion, Terry Funk.
Yeah,
this title mattered much.
No.
So
I have no problem with this. I love both guys, so I'm happy to see them on the card. It's a great little middle of the pack bullshit match. You give them, probably 6 to 8 minutes to go out there and hit each other with stuff, get the crowd all excited, let Tony Schiavone crack his jokes at this point. This match isn't going to set the world on fire, but not every match needs to set the world on fire. I think this is perfectly placed on the card. It is what it needs to be. And then you can move on to something else, and this probably will be forgotten by the end of the night.
Yeah, 100%. It's just as Bruce Pritchard would say, it's a let me up match, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's well placed on the card, so I'll give you the thumbs up on this one as well.
Nice, thank you.
All right. So the fourth match, then we're doing a boot camp match, and no, it's not Sergeant Slaughter coming out to take on Pat Patterson. It is G.I. Bro defeating Sean Stasiak. 13:58 they went. Oof, what do you got here?
I have a WCW Cruiserweight Championship match. I have Chavo Guerrero defending the championship against the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea.
Okay, I was really hoping you were going to say Juventud Guerrera here, but artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea doing the Prince ripoff, kind of, right? Big time with Charmel, I believe. Is that who he was with?
I think she was called Paisley at this point.
Paisley, yeah, but it is Charmel, Booker T's wife, correct?
Yeah.
For me, I was not a big fan of the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea. Even when he's Prince Iaukea, I just never really saw it with him. Chavo, I love. But Prince could go in the ring. I'm sure that this match would be good. Who's the face? Who's the heel here? Run me through this a little bit, and who do you got going over?
Well, this is kind of like an island into itself. Do you remember during the WWE Invasion Angle, WWF Invasion Angle, when you would have sometimes the Cruiserweight matches? I believe it was at SummerSlam we saw X-Pac. I don't remember who he faced, but it was kind of like...
It was Tajiri.
Yeah, it was a heel on heel, or they were both kind of heels at that point. I felt like the Cruiserweight Championship, I didn't feel the need to necessarily draw lines so much. So I felt as though you could have two younger talents as Cruiserweights going up against each other. And
so are these guys affiliated with anybody then? Are they a Millionaires Club, or are they just doing their own thing at this point?
Well, they're both kind of affiliated with the New Blood because they're younger talent, but it's not like a real blood. It's just a match. It's a contend. The story is just, Prince is getting his opportunity. It's not so much about faction versus faction here. I didn't feel like every single match needed to be about that.
Yeah.
So this is more competitive.
So would you have like the build kind of for this be something like, Russo sitting down with both these guys going, you guys are what? Go out there and show us what we're talking about, essentially?
More or less, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's much where we're going with this. Both guys, as you said, and to be honest with you, I just love the Prince's theme music, so I kind of want to hear that.
That's fair. Yeah, okay. Who do you got going over?
So it's like a throwback to the Cruiserweight matches that made Nitro famous. A lot of back and forth, high spots and offense. As the artist crotches Guerrero on the top rope and he's poised to land a huge superplex, Chavo fights out of it and knocks the artist onto the canvas and lands the frog splash for the 3. Winner, still champion, Chavo Guerrero.
Yeah, I'm down with this. I'm down with this. I would have probably put Hoovy in there just because I'm a mark for Hoovy instead of the artist, but I guess the artist is kind of what the WCW in 2000 was all about. I know what they were going for, so I understand why he's in there. From an in-ring standpoint, Hoovy's my choice here, but I'll give you the artist here. I don't have a big problem with this one either.
Yeah, that's fair, and I feel like Hoovy's been in that spot a lot, so it's good to give an opportunity, right?
Well, and you know what? It's an upgrade from Disco in there, so I'm fine with that. Moving on to match number 5, we have a tables match with the franchise Shane Douglas defeating the Wall in 8 minutes. Oh, jeez. Again. Yeah. What do you got? I'm assuming this is going to change.
Oh, no, this is going to go an hour Broadway.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, perfect. That's the way I would book that as well. And thank you very much for having me, Jay. I'm going to see myself out now.
Then we're going to have the WrestleMania 12 finish where it's going to become sudden death.
There we go. There. Off air, we're going to talk about the future of this show on the Counted Out 7 YouTube page, okay?
The next match I have this is where we get into a little bit more of the WCW 2000 booking. We have a first blood match with Ric Flair going up against Shane Douglas.
Okay, so we are getting rid of one of 2 retirement matches on this card.
Yes.
So Flair and Douglas, they have been a very notorious word of, what am I trying to say? A war of words. Thank you.
Saturday morning, we're both a little bit foggy. Both of us are still on our couple of cups of coffee here.
That's it. Usually I'm drinking whiskey when I record these, but let me try that again. The big time war of words that Shane Douglas and Flair have had. Shane Douglas has never been shy on the microphone and behind the scenes on the shoots as well. He's always laid into Flair pretty heavy. This has got Vince Russo 101 written all over it, of taking something from reality, putting it on TV. The one thing I don't like about when he do stuff like this, though, is that he's booking for about 1% of the audience. So hopefully you gotta tell a story here, right? So what do you got? How do we get here?
Well, I think you just sort of bring to light what's been going on. I think if you tell the story in public, you can get people invested. I think if you don't tell the story in a way that sort of appeals to casual fans, people aren't going to be that interested in it. On its face, it's not that interesting a match. But if you're able to tell that story about the tension between the two, you're able to make it kind of a compelling storyline. And that's really what we do. We have both guys going out each week and cutting these vicious promos on each other, which I think will help to build and sort of sell the angle to the casual audience, which, I don't know how many casual audience members were left in 2000, but...
Yeah. If like the thing with this too is if you let Shane Douglas go out there and be Shane Douglas and start shooting on Flair real hard, you could possibly get some of those ECW fans over to watch that because Shane Douglas that was something that really endeared him to that fan base, was, ripping guys like Ric Flair apart with and unmercifully as well. So you might be able to lure a couple of the ECW fan base over there for that. From an in-ring standpoint, Flair was still going pretty good at this point. I know he was battling his little depression problems around this. Sorry, I shouldn't say little depression. That's terrible of me to say. He was battling some pretty heavy depression problems at this point. He was not confident in himself. This is much better than the David Flair feud, though. I really think that this was one of the missed opportunity feuds when they did this program the first time around. Then they kind of just blew through it in a week or two.
100%. That's exactly why I wanted. It had legs. We'd already seen the match once before on the previous pay-per-view that I aforementioned. So I definitely felt that we needed to get some more mileage out of this. especially because of the tension that existed between them. And if you tell that story correctly, I feel as though you could at least get 3 pay-per-view matches out of this. You could get the trio, the trilogy. So in this match, seemingly years in the making, the month's previous match was actually thrown out due to interference. So it really didn't resolve anything. So I felt as though this made a lot of sense to have this snip in here. It's also, very WCW 2000. So there's a lot of work outside the ring, steals, steps, chairs, guardrail spots. It's super snug, super stiff. The two go through the crowd and land bombs on one another. Back in the ring, Douglas lands a Pittsburgh plunge onto an unfolded steel chair on Flair, which was a pretty crazy spot for Flair to take in 2000. He then lifts Flair and sits him on top of the chair. And as he's finding another chair to waffle Rick in the head with, Shane gets some momentum from the ropes, and Flair manages to steal a page from Raven's book and lands a drop toe hold on Douglas, and then he hits his head on the chair. Douglas is busted wide open, and Flair locks in the figure 4. The ref sees the blood and calls the bell. Ric Flair is your winner.
Okay. I'm all right with this. Who went over? Can you refresh my memory? Did Shane Douglas go over in the first match? Do you remember?
In canon?
Yeah, and you said they worked the first one together.
Well, in my booking, it was a no contest. It was just thrown out due to interference. But
okay.
I don't recall actually who won the match because they did have one. But again, one match. I don't know why they wouldn't have done it again.
So you got Flair going over with the figure 4. There's no shame in that as well. Flair would probably be happy. I think that's the first time he's ever won with the figure 4 in his entire career.
Well, yeah. It's sort of, it was more a device after he hit the drop toe hold and landed Shane's head into the spot I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So he nails Shane's head onto the chair and Shane's busted wide open. It was more a way for him to reveal to the audience and to reveal to the referee that he had been busted. So he has him locked in the figure 4 in the middle of the ring. Shane has nowhere to go. He has no way to hide that he's bleeding. Because sometimes in these first blood matches, you have guys that are able to conceal it, or the match goes for like 2 or 3 minutes before the ref notices, or then you do the obligatory ref bump. And then by the time the ref comes to, both guys are bleeding. So I just thought that it made sense to have it so that there was no way for Shane to conceal it.
Yeah, that's fair. And, it still kind of protects him because he's not tapping out. He's not quitting. It's first blood. So, yeah, I'm okay with this. I might have had Shane go over personally, especially with the stip as well, because Flair's a known bleeder. Yeah, I'm gonna wait out your booking again on this one and see where we go from here. I think that Shane really could have used the win more than Flair. I think Shane was a guy that in WCW they didn't really fully get behind him like they should have. And I think a big win on a big pay-per-view over a guy like Flair might have gone a long way for him. But let's see where you keep going with this one. I'm gonna go undecided on this one.
Okay, sounds good.
So what do we got next here? Scott Steiner with Medeja and Shakira defeating Rick Steiner and Tank Abbott in a handicap asylum match. Thank God you have rebooked this one. This is probably the longest 3 minutes and 46 seconds on the card. Where are we going now?
We are going to a career versus championship opportunity match. Billy Kidman versus Hollywood Hogan. Okay,
so we're sticking. You're keeping this one the same.
Yeah, I'm keeping this one the same, and I'm actually going to leave the match largely the same. It's just going to be with a regular WCW referee. I didn't want Horace Hogan as the referee. I thought that was stupid. The the story they were telling, it didn't need to be there. I thought that there was enough, to quote somebody very familiar to you and I, there was enough meat on the bone.
Once that, go back in the archives of the Counted Out podcast where we talk about Sid. Was that episode?
Yeah. Felt like we were all doing all you can eat ribs.
No kidding. That's my new tagline. Get a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, I just didn't really feel like it was necessary to have Horace Hogan in there.
Yep.
The finish was when Tori Wilson comes to ringside and offers brass knuckles to Kidman. She then attempts to distract Hogan. Kidman nails Hogan from behind, and works him over with the brass knucks. Torrie even slaps Hogan in the face, and as Kidman chokes him with the bottom rope, the referee throws Wilson out of the arena, and Kidman protests, with Hogan now up and getting his wits about him. Hogan attempts a second brass knuckle shot, but runs right into a big boot. Hogan lands 2 leg drops and covers Billy Kidman for the win. Hulk Hogan is now your number 1 contender for the WCW Championship, and Billy Kidman is hopefully a bigger star coming out of this.
I'm gonna give this one a Tyrone thumbs down for sure. I did not enjoy anything about Hogan and Kidman together. I thought that it really destroyed Kidman. Like they were trying to make Kidman like their top heel, at this time period, and Hogan just wiped the floor with them and then did a job for him. Like it didn't do anything for him. I'm fine with Hogan being your number 1 contender though. I'm fine with that part of the booking. I don't know if I would per se have Kidman in here at this spot. But I don't know who I would put in instead either.
That's the trouble. I couldn't really think of another guy, especially because of the way I booked the main event. I couldn't think of another guy, and it made sense to me if you had booked Kidman versus Hogan differently. I think it could have had a little bit more potential. In the match I had done previously, it was a good match. Hogan lost, but it wasn't like Hogan running over Kidman the whole time.
Yeah.
Kidman could run circles around Hogan. So you have that really good showing from Kidman in the match previous. And even in this match, I mean, you would have a really good showing for Kidman. It wouldn't just be Hogan running all over Kidman for the entirety of the match, and then the only way that Kidman could get the upper hand was with the brass knucks. This was more the idea that it was a competitive match, but Kidman was so desperate to beat Hogan again and to cement his legacy as the guy that the young upstart who went over Hogan twice, that he had got the brass knucks. And so I just sort of felt like that kind of made sense if you'd booked it correctly. But I understand your point as well. I mean, it wasn't an angle that was going to set the territory on fire either.
Yeah, you know who I think would have been really good as Hogan's rival at this point, and I hate saying this too because I wouldn't want to see him get pinned by Hogan either, but I think Mike Awesome would have been really good in this role to face Hogan. It gives you kind of that little 80s throwback of the big guy coming at Hogan. I think Hogan's style works a lot better when he's in there with a guy the size of Mike Awesome compared to a guy like Kidman. I don't think Hogan knows how to work with those small guys and get the best out of them. I think that with a guy like Mike Awesome, with Hogan as the face, you know, beat down, Hulk up, move on to the next one, right? The recipe's there for that. But I feel like with Hogan in a face role and a smaller guy like Kidman in the heel role, I feel like Hogan doesn't know how to get the best out of people with the roles like that.
Yeah, it's like the opposite, right? The smaller guy, the younger guy is sort of obliged to get the best out of Hogan because he's the one that's doing all the high spots and the bumping around. It's like Shawn and Hogan at SummerSlam 2005, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? I just think Mike Awesome and Hogan would have had a pretty entertaining match, and I hate saying it because, again, I just went on that rant how I think they misused Mike Awesome the whole time, but, you know, bringing him in, debuting him, and putting him in with Hogan and having a competitive match with Hogan, Awesome could still come out okay in that one, right?
Yeah, I don't hate that. To full disclosure, Mike Awesome's not on the card. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't put him on the card. He was a healthy scratch. I felt like we could do something with him the next night. You don't have to have everybody on the card all the time.
Yeah, fair.
But no, I felt pretty good about it, but no, that makes a lot of sense as well. To your point, the big man versus big man style would definitely serve Hogan better in this angle, I think, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's go on to the next one here. Ric Flair defeating David Flair with Vince Russo by submission in another retirement match. So we've already seen Flair on this card. I'm hoping that we're going to hear another healthy scratch and David Flair here. What are we subbing in here?
That David Flair stuff never happened either. I felt as though it's seen the stuff with the NWO in 1999 when Hogan had kind of brainwashed David Flair. I bought that. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
As a sort of short-term program. But going forward after that, we never saw any of this stuff with Crowbar and Daphne. Like, that stuff never happened in my booking. I feel like David Flair was good for the spot that he was in the beginning of '99. After that, send him to the power plant.
See, for me now, I'm going to go the opposite way on you here. Now, I didn't like the David Flair, Ric Flair angle, but I loved the stuff that he did with Crowbar and Daphne. I thought that the three of them together were highly underrated as an entertaining segment on the show. When David Flair started doing his crazy guy Crowbar gimmick thing, I did enjoy that, and I really, really enjoyed them and Crowbar together. So I would like to see that continue, but what do you got here in its place?
We're actually going to the main event.
Oh, we're going to the main event already. Okay. I'm hoping that your main event is what I'm thinking in my head. I have a rough idea of where you're going here, and I'm hoping that it's a big gimmick match that we'll see here. Okay.
I played around with what you're thinking, and yeah, I thought about it, but I am doing a 10-man tag team elimination match, the Millionaires Club versus the New Blood. Sorry, I think you were thinking I was going to do War Games, yeah?
Yeah, I would have went War Games here, 100%. It's got a rich history with the Great American Bash pay-per-views, dating back right to the inception of War Games. It makes sense with this angle, and it's a WCW staple. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be at the Fall Brawl pay. Don't get me started on these rants. Fall Brawl doesn't mean it has to be War Games. Hell in a Cell doesn't mean it has to be Hell in a Cell. That shit pisses me off. These matches need to mean something. If you want to put these high stakes going on, I don't think that there's a better match that you could do than a War Games match here. So I'm going to disagree with your booking on this one already. I haven't heard it yet, but I think this should be in a War Games. But let's hear who you got in this match, because we're on a similar mind frame here.
Okay, let me give you my argument as to why it wasn't War Games. And I thought about it, and I was very close to pulling the trigger on it. In fact, I was about halfway through booking it when I stopped, because to me, it's too soon for War Games.
Okay.
You just started the angle 2 months previous. To me, War Games is a blow-off.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready to blow off the angle yet. I felt like you can do a 10-man tag like this, and then you can do a War Games later in the year. I didn't need to see that kind of a gimmick match in the middle of the angle. I thought it was too soon. It's like, to your point, and I go to this all the time, we're going to start a feud. We're going to start an angle with Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, and Seth Rollins. We're going to start it in Hell in the Cell.
Yeah.
And then we're going to blow it off at, I think it was Crown Jewel, in just a regular singles match.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. So I hate doing, to your point about the pay-per-views as well, I hate doing stip matches just for the sake of doing stip matches.
Yeah.
To me, there's a logical sort of succession of matches you build to that big blow-off, especially with the cage. I feel as though with War Games, it would be even more heated at that point. Now, maybe it's too many large tag team matches then. I don't know. But I felt like this is a really good way to get, really establish the battle lines being drawn.
Okay. My argument to that would be, if you go back to 1996 when the NWO, they really formed in July. They got into the War Games with when they did that fake Sting angle a couple months later. I think there's a right way that this can be done, as long as you do have a blow-off match in mind down the road. And I'll use AEW as an example. I think that they rushed the War Games match too quickly with the Pinnacle and with the Inner Circle. I think that, you could have got months out of tag team matches with FTR and Santana and Ortiz, Sammy Guevara and Sean Spears. There was too many singles matches and stuff to be had there. They started with the War Games. With this one, at least, you're a couple months into it. Obviously, tensions are running high with this feud. There's probably going to be a lot of brawls every week. I think putting them in a War Games match is, with the stipulation, winner gets to call the next shots. I think that's okay, because that match it's now got a high stakes on it. and you want it to be controlled. And I'm okay with the War Games being here. It doesn't feel like a blow off to me here.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. I think it's just two different schools of thought. I do agree with you that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. The 1996 one you alluded to, yeah, I can see how that made sense. But I think to your point, even that one to me felt like maybe I didn't need it that quickly. And again, you don't need to do War Games at Fall Brawl. It should just be when you can pull that card whenever the angle calls for it. You don't have to, because then you know that it's coming every year.
100%. It's like when they put Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania with Triple H and Taker. It meant something, and that's the last time Hell in a Cell's been good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can't disagree with that at all.
Okay, well, before you get into the booking on this, I'm going to have to channel my inner Tyrone here. Grow up, Jay. This match should be in War Games. Let's hear what you got, though. Let's hear what you got.
All right, so we got the Millionaires Club. We got Lex Luger, DDP, Kevin Nash, Sting, and Goldberg going up against Jeff Jarrett, Vampiro. What is it, Vampiro or Vampiro?
I'm pretty sure it's Vampiro.
Yeah, it's Vampiro, because I guess I always think of...
the Ed Ferreira.
Vampiro!
Yeah.
Jeez, he ruined me. So Jeff Jarrett, Vampiro, Canyon, Booker T, and Buff Bagwell. And that is your team for the new blood.
So Jeff Jarrett, Booker T, Canyon, and Vampiro. And sorry, say that again.
Jeff Jarrett, Vampiro, Canyon, Booker T, and Buff Bagwell.
Okay.
That's your new blood. So we get a lot of plunder and brawling in the beginning of the match. Just each guy pairs off, and they all have fights and brawls all over the place. Then we settle down into the match. DDP eliminates Bagwell with a diamond cutter. Canyon eliminates DDP with the flatliner. Luger's disqualified after nailing Booker with a chair. As Booker recovers, Sting hits him with a scorpion death drop to eliminate him. Sting's then eliminated by Jarrett with the stroke. Nash then hits the jackknife on Canyon for the elimination. And we're left with Jarrett and Vampiro versus Nash and Goldberg. The big finish of the match comes when Goldberg swerves the Millionaires Club and spears Nash, then walks out of the ring and to the backstage area. Jarrett gets the pin, and the new blood is victorious.
So you got Vampiro, Jarrett going over as the sole survivors?
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. I'm fine with everything you've done here. The only thing I would change a little bit, though, is I would put the baby faces in a little bit more despair here. Maybe when Luger gets disqualified, I would then have Sting go out next instead. So there's kind of the numbers disadvantage there. And you can have maybe Nash, knock out a couple of the guys. Like, you know what I mean? Give that little... it's like the Shawn Michaels booking from Survivor Series that one year where it was Team Austin against Team Bischoff. Mm-hmm. I always like to see the baby faces down a little bit. Maybe have like a 4-on-2 advantage there. Give them that hope spot and then yank it away with the Goldberg spear.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Again, I think that would be something that I would probably book more towards, say, a War Games type thing. I am 100% on board with that booking. I love that booking. It's very compelling. But for me, I just thought that because it's the first real clash between the two factions as, cohesive teams, I didn't book any kind of infighting. We could maybe have, other than the Goldberg turn, obviously, but it didn't have a lot of bickering and infighting, because so often that's the case with these angles, is as they progress, you start to see cracks in the armor of each faction. And I find that sometimes it just diminishes what the angle is supposed to do for each faction. So I can see it maybe more with one faction. You have like the new blood, maybe they start getting arrogant and cocky and too big for their britches and all that kind of thing, and they start having some cracks. Or then again, you could do it with the Millionaires Club and have them kind of wanting to reclaim the spotlight for themselves, kind of thing. So
because they're all full of ego, right? They've been main eventers for years. You know what I mean? Like, you could go either way there. You could have the young, cocky guys all thinking they should be the next big guy and rubbing each other the wrong way. Or you can have the Millionaires Club being like, well, I'm better than you. I'm richer than you. I'm whatever, right? I've been the top dog. Yeah, you could go either way with that, right?
Yeah, I think either way is convincing, but doing both is too much.
Yeah. I'm with you on this. I think the booking's fine. I like that you kept the Goldberg heel turn in there. I like the fact that you're giving the power to the new blood or the new breed or whatever the hell they're called. I think that's a smart booking call there. I still would have put the Steiner brothers over, but that's just me. I'm Jindrak and O'Hare over, but that's just me.
But wait, there's more.
Oh.
The next night on Nitro, we build all night to the final segment, which is Why Goldberg Why, with Bischoff and Russo in the ring. The Millionaires Club has been banned from the building earlier in the evening. Goldberg explains that he wasn't going to side with the help of all, or side or help with all those pricks who have been each taking their cheap shots and trying to hold him down. Just as we're about to go off the air with a celebration in full swing, confetti, balloons, the whole schmear, Goldberg spears both Russo and Bischoff out of their shoes. Goldberg is once again back to what made him one of the biggest stars in wrestling. He's a one-man wrecking machine with a simple mission. Dominance, but this time with a healthy thirst for revenge.
I like it.
He's back to the island in of itself. He's not affiliated, like it's back to when he was on the streak. He was WCW, but he wasn't really WCW. Like, he wasn't carrying the torch or carrying the flag. He wasn't NWO. He was just kind of an island into himself. And I feel like reboot Goldberg. If you're going to reboot this whole company, reboot Goldberg and bring him back to what made him so successful in the first place.
Yeah, because that's something I never understood about heel Goldberg is why don't you want to be the world champion? Why are you playing second fiddle to Jeff Jarrett?
Exactly.
I never understood that about the heel turn. I love the booking on that. I think it's fantastic. I think Goldberg should be that one-man wrecking crew because he can be. And especially at this point, you know, he was believable in that role. Goldberg as a heel, it doesn't work, you know. He wasn't believable as a heel. He's only a heel when he comes back now, like we said already. I like that booking. I'm with that. I'm with that 100%. I give your card 2 thumbs up, my friend. I'm impressed. I would have still put in the War Games though, but that's just me because I'm a War Games mark and the Great American Bash, War Games. It all makes sense to me. But I'm all about it.
Yeah, it definitely crossed my mind. I really love those. I think they did a War Games tour back in '86. They did a Great American Bash tour, and they were doing War Games in different cities.
Yeah, so 100%.
History for War Games with me at the Great American Bash. I mean, obviously Fall Brawl, but when I think of War Games, I think of the Great American Bash for sure.
Yeah, that's my one of my favorite matches of all time is that first ever War Games match with the Horsemen and the Superpowers. That is some of the best stuff. That's some of the best booked wrestling you'll ever watch.
100%.
What a fall from grace we are 20 years later.
Yeah, no kidding. No roof on it, no cage.
I gotta tell you though, I did not hate going back and looking at WCW 2000 as much as I thought I would. So I tip my cap to you. You did a pretty decent job with your booking here.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. It was it became a labor of love. At the beginning, I was really cursing Tyrone. I was like, why are you doing this to me? I just gave you King of the Ring 95. It's the one we wanted to do. Like, this is a gift. I got a lump of coal in my stocking.
Well, you got to be a better boy, man. Tyrone must not have been happy with your booking, so you got a lump of coal, buddy.
You know what? Yeah. Well, no, it was it was fun. So I enjoyed it. It was nice to go back and look at it. I don't necessarily want to revisit WCW 2000 again for a while, but
I'll tell you what. By the end of the year, I want to come back on and I want to rebook Mayhem 99.
Yeah, 100%. You're welcome anytime.
Well, I'll take you up on that. A couple things I want to rebook.
Well, with that being said, though, I believe that you are going to be a guest for our next episode as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely excited for it. I don't know when you're going to put it out there, but if it's going to be next week, then all the power to it. I'm taking over the Counted Out channel, apparently.
You sure are. Well, you're certainly a guest, and we're going to return the favor at any point. Both Tyrone and I have guested on your show, so it's only fair that you come on ours, and I'm really happy to have you. So we'll do a return, as they say.
Yeah, man, and you know what? If I'm coming back, I want to do it in an extreme manner. So
absolutely, and that feeds right into what you are booking next week, because next week, as per the poll that we put up on our Good Friends, Better Enemies Twitter page. You are going to book ECW One Night Stand 2006.
Yeah, and this is something that I just counted down on our podcast. I just did the top 7 moments from the 2 ECW One Night Stand pay-per-views in the Hammerstein Ballroom, so it's fresh in my mind. I have done lots of research on it. I'm ready to roll on this thing, man. I think I got a real banger lined up for everybody.
Yeah, I can't wait to sink our teeth into it. I just watched it last night with a couple of cold beers and really enjoyed taking some notes. It was much better than I remembered it being, and certainly not even close to the original from 2005. But yeah, I would give it a solid pass as is. So
yeah, we'll dive deep into that on the next one. And why don't we pay some bills here, man? Let's do some plugs.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we go ahead and let you plug first, pal?
Well, since you are already watching this on the @CountItOut7 YouTube page, you know where to go for everything Counted Out related, and as well as Good Friends, Better Enemies, www.countitout7.com. All the social media is @CountItOut7. Tune in, man. You know, we're happy to be partnered up with Jay and Tyrone. We love the stuff that you guys are doing. Lots of fun stuff coming in the future for all of us, man. So thanks for having me today, buddy.
Absolutely. I'm very, very pleased to have you indeed. We are on Instagram at good_enemies and on Twitter at good_enemies. And for myself, for Tyler, for WCW 2000, for War Games, and for ECW One Night Stand 2006, the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast thanks you very much. This is where you're supposed to say bye.
Bye. Cheers. That's my sign off is cheers.